Here we go. Sorry, here we go. There should be an automatic admit all button here somewhere. Well, I've got one, but right. Sorry, folks. I am Neil Davis. I run Exponential Events. We've been doing that since 2017. And hopefully soon we'll be back to actually holding some physical ones, which would be great. we can all meet up in the city or somewhere and have some fun and learn some stuff. So that would be great. Today's event, again, very important. If you're looking to raise capital, there's going to be some great advice. There's some great people here presenting, sharing their experience and knowledge with you. I've got a little poll running, so anybody who wants to complete that, that'd be great. That can help us going forward. Also, we've got the chat rooms open, so if anybody's got any questions, feel free to ask them in there. We'll have an open forum going forward, so we'll have Anthony on first from SeedLegals, then Dan from Forresters, then Dan Ballin and myself will open up the meeting to everybody, and anybody then who's got any other questions, please just feel free to ask. Don't be shy. As I say, the people here's knowledge is extensive in the world of startups and raising capital, and it really is, I can't stress enough how important it is to, you know, open up yourselves and take advantage of people, for want of a better word.
Oh, you've got on, yeah.
Yes, sorry. Can you hear me? I've got people flying in all over the place at the moment. What I'll do, Anthony, I'll stop sharing, and that'll enable me to concentrate on letting people in and everything.
All right. So, hello everyone. Now,
I'll let you introduce yourself. Sorry.
All right. So I'm Anthony, founder and CEO at SeedLegals. We're actually quite a scale up ourselves these days. We're about to hit 100 people. About 1 in 6 of all the UK early stage funding rounds is now on SeedLegals. We talk to lots, and I talk to lots of founders, and I'm here to share the top things to do and to not do when you look to raise investment. But to help me say exactly the right things that you're interested in, if I can turn and ask very quickly, a couple of people who've got video on, and by the way, feel free to turn on video. But so I think there was Sylvia a moment ago who was on. Sylvia, if I got the name right, or anyone else who'd like to hop in and just tell us briefly about what you're doing, what stage you're at, and what are the things you'd like to learn most about today, and then I will take that as a theme.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for being here. So my name is Sylvie. I'm from Belgium. Framus is my second startup, and Framus is a new way of connecting idols and fans, taking a selfie from a distance, but also extend the experience before and after a live event by ER. So now I'm looking where I want to create my legal identity. Will it be the UK or the US or the Netherlands? I don't know, but Belgium is too small for this kind of stuff.
Okay.
And that's the reason I'm here into the call, and I'm following and listen what the possibilities are for working together to create, because I have a very bad experience with co-founders and investors because of contracts and things like that of my first startup.
All right, so great points that I'm delighted I asked. So there are two things, one of them which is for all founders, which is about founder agreements, which I'll get to. And the second one is about, you know, non-UK companies in the UK, and you know, whether Belgian law is good or not. If you ask AstraZeneca, they'll probably say it's not so good. But yes, we might confuse you with a bit of UK terminology, but let's see how we go. So Jayesh, if I can ask you very quickly, what stage are you at, and which are the things you might be looking for thoughts and help on today?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Anthony. And thanks, Neil. Yeah, so we are about to launch our beta, and we are building a platform, SaaS platform. It's an online platform for freelance and remote jobs, focusing on life science, IT, and digital health, because that's where the unmet need is. And initially, we'll be connecting the freelance consultant with the employers, startups, and SMEs. So basically, what we want to do is automate the life science consulting business via our SaaS platform.
Okay.
And later on, we will be adding more project management features and all the stuff.
And what
So
are the key things, yeah, that you might be looking for?
For the funding?
Well, for advice, thoughts, help, if magically a guru could give you advice on what to do next, what things might you be looking for?
Yeah, sure. Especially like regarding reaching angel investors. So I have my pitch on Angel Investment Network.
Okay.
I have added to a couple of weeks ago. I got good success. Like I started pitching around 6 weeks ago, 7 weeks. So I already reached 50K plus now.
Very nice.
Plus I got some 100K plus government grants, 10,000 AWS. So it's going really good. Have some team already. Looking to hire a few people in UK because I have a grant towards their salary. So it's all going very, very busy. And
okay.
it just I need to connect more with the angel investors so I can finish this SEIS and move towards the EIS.
All right, fantastic, thank you. And I think between Dan, Ballin, and myself, we hopefully will cover those. Dan might do more on the investor and the pitch deck piece, and I might do more on the SEIS and the legals piece. So without further ado, if everyone wants to mute, then I will turn on screen sharing and see how we can talk to the things that you're looking for and beyond. So what I'm going to do is take you through the life cycle of a startup, from incorporation through to your first round and beyond, and the things to look for, the things to do, the things to not to do. So of course, the very first thing is you have an idea, and then at some point you decide it's moved from a hobby to a business, and now is the time to incorporate. The good news, Sylvie is in the UK, it costs you £12, it takes like an hour on Companies House, you will need a UK registered address, but it's super easy to incorporate your company. But of course, that's then when things start. So the very first thing that we see is that if you do incorporate the company and you have a few founders with 50 shares each, for example, or 100 shares divided by the number of founders, the problem is as soon as your founders have shares in the business and you don't have founder agreements in place, then if the founders split up, there's no end of trouble. And my data at SeedLegals suggests that maybe 1 in 10 founders end up splitting up. And it seems to be much more now with COVID, people working remotely, you know, business may be challenging, not seeing eye to eye, people split up. So what is a founder agreement? A founder agreement is an agreement between each founder and the company that says, if I leave in a certain number of years, typically 3 years, I have to transfer back some of my shares to the company. So if I leave on day 1, I have to give back all of my shares. After 3 years, they're all mine. And somewhere in between now and then, I keep some fraction. And that's called reverse vesting. So having reverse vesting in place is essential, because if founders split up and your founder, you can't see eye to eye and they leave after 3 months, if they were to keep all of their shares, your business is basically uninvestable, because you have a non-performing founder who might be antagonistic owning a half of the business. Whereas if you had founder vesting in place, they might keep a few shares and give back most. Thank you for your efforts, you keep some shares. The second thing that a founder agreement has is IP assignment. So when you get started, it's informal, you know, you've met in the pub, you're now designing, coding, but at some point, everyone needs to formally assign the intellectual property they've done to the company. And that's needed for 2 reasons. One, if you do split up, if the other co-founder goes, no, this is my idea, it's my code, then the company is really stuck. You, in fact, may end up in a dispute and you can't even progress with your own idea and project. It would be terrible. The second thing is when investors later on, not your first friends and family investors, but a fund comes along later to invest, they're going to want to do as part of their due diligence to see a chain of ownership that everything that the company has as its intellectual property is owned by the company. And if you don't have these agreements in place, then as part of your due diligence, you're now going to have to start chasing those advisors, graphic designers, software developers you used who now, have disappeared. You're going to have to hunt them down, get them to sign agreements saying that the company owns the intellectual property. And of course, at this point, they may be wanting money to do that. It might be difficult. Maybe you didn't like each other anymore. So founder agreements are super important. You can do these for free on SeedLegals. There's no excuse not to have it. And having a founder agreement in place is often the difference when people message us on SeedLegals going, my founder's left, my advisor has a dispute, what to do? And if we say, do you have a founder agreement? And they say, yes. Then we go, great, let's look at the next steps in the agreement. And if they say no, then it's often quite a fight on that. So that's about founder agreements. So the next thing is you've got your founding team, and now you want to add employees. Often your first employee is your CTO. Either they're a co-founder or they're a founding employee, but either way, you probably don't have money to pay them their market rate. So now your next problem is one day your business will have lots of money and from investment and profitable, but until now and then, how do I get people on board and incentivize them? And the way to do that is to give them equity in the business. So two things to note. Number one, in the same way you wouldn't pay your iOS developer their entire annual salary on January the 1st, because they earn it over the year. Likewise, you should never give someone all of their equity on day one. It should always be with the vesting schedule. So I'm going to give you 1,000 shares, which will vest over 2 years or 3 years. Or I will give you so many share options that vest over this period. So now comes the second important thing to note, which is if you're hiring someone and you're giving them equity and your shares have got no value, you've just incorporated the company, then it's fine to give them shares. But as soon as the shares have value, then if it's an employee, that can create tax issues for both the employee and the company, because it would be deemed by HMRC that you're giving them value, and they could deem that to be an employment or employee benefit, and that means the company has to pay PAYE and national insurance, and it's a very expensive mistake. So as soon as the shares have value, and in particular if it's an employee, then you want to give them share options instead, and you'll create a share option pool. And actually it turns out to be quite simple, which is you can go on SeedLegals and you can create an advisor agreement or consulting agreement or an employment agreement. And in all cases, it will have IP assignment. So the intellectual property belongs to the company. It'll have a non-disclosure agreement built in to go, if I leave or I can't talk about what I've done, it stays with the company. And it'll also have, if you want, and you want to give equity, it will say, if I leave anytime in the next N years, I have to transfer some of the shares back, or I only get some of the options. So that's also something you can do, again, for free on SeedLegals, and there's no excuse to not do those whenever you engage someone in your company. So the next thing is you now talk to advisors, and you'll often hear people telling you that it's great in your pitch deck if you've got advisors at the end. If you can get Tim Berners-Lee as an advisor for your internet business, that sounds great. I'm not so sure that having advisors is a huge benefit, but either way, it's great to have them. The question is, how much it costs you. And of course, you don't have money to give them early on. And often the advisors are not doing it for money. They're doing it because they would like a stake in the business. So if it does become a unicorn, this has been terrific for them. So how much equity should you give an advisor? And here, it's quite difficult because the advisor might go, I'd like 10% of the business. And you going, I'm thinking more like 0.1%. So how do you reach a number? What's a good percent of the business to give an advisor? Usually, by the way, in the form of share options. So what I like to do is think about what the cash equivalent would be. So if your advisor wants 10% of the business, let's say that hypothetically in the super early stages, your business, you put a valuation of £500,000 on it. 10% would be £50,000. So this advisor is going to breeze up one day a month to chat with you and give you some advice and put the name on the pitch deck. For £50,000 of value, you could have a CTO working full-time for you for the same amount. So I think that's a crazy amount. On the other hand, if it was like £5,000 a year, and let's say you were to give them, so £5,000 a year would be 1% equity. So you might say, I will give you 1% of the business, vesting over a year, always with vesting, £500,000 valuation, 1%, £5,000. That works out about right. And indeed, the stats on SeedLegals show that advisors typically get somewhere like 1 to 2% vesting over 1 to 2 or even 3 years, which then comes into sort of 1% a year. And the larger the business, the bigger the valuation, typically the smaller the percent equity they'll get. But there's a good article on that. If you go to SeedLegals, Resources, Deal Data, there's an article with graphs and metrics on how much equity to give to your advisor. But again, the key thing is to think about it in terms of a pound value, and then you can have a sensible discussion, which is, hey, if I were to give you £5,000 value for 1 day a month, that sounds about right, as opposed to 10%, 1%, it all is meaningless. So the next thing is you've got your founding team, you've got your agreements in place, and now you want to go find investors. And the big question is, how do I value my company? When I talk to investors, is it worth £100,000 or £10 million? And you've got two problems to solve. One of them is picking a value, and the second one is convincing investors that that is the value. So what are you going to do? And here, I think there are kind of 4 ways you can go. Number one, you can read TechCrunch, but then you should take a 0 off the end because those are crazy American valuations. The second thing is you can go to like sifted.eu or UK Tech News or one of the other publications, tech.eu, that writes about startup investment. And by the way, you should check out all of those publications, but they'll often tell you how much a company is raising, but not what the valuation is. So it's hard to find that. And also, of course, they only tell you about the big success ones. They don't tell you someone's raised 50K because it's not really news. So also reading those will lead you to believe everyone's raising millions, which may be the case, but much later on. So the next thing is you can go to your accountant and ask him or her to give you a valuation. That's not going to work because your accountant's going to go, so do you make money? And you go, no. They'll go, are you losing money? You go, yes. They'll go, are you planning to make money anytime soon? You go, no. And they'll say, so remind me why your valuation is greater than 0. So that's no good. So the fourth way you can do it, which most founders really do, is they start by making a spreadsheet of their forecasting. So in year 1, I'm going to lose some money. I'm going to have no revenue. In year 2, I'm going to do $1 million in revenue. In year 3, I'm going to do 5 million in revenue. In year 4, I'm going to do 20 million in revenue. So that's amazing. And you definitely want to do your financial projections. But the problem is it's just made up numbers. Nobody knows whether you'll hit those numbers. Nobody knows whether anyone will want your product, and no one knows whether you'll even build your product in time. So these numbers are great, and they're great goals to have, and investors will look at it to see your level of ambition. But it's not anything you can base the valuation on. I mean, I've seen companies with blockchain saying they're going to do 100 million a year in revenue by year 4. I mean, that's amazing, but it would be like one of the FTSE 500 or even 100 companies in the UK. It's amazing, but statistically unlikely. So what are you going to do? So there's a fifth method, and this is what we see based on data on SeedLegals. So over hundreds or now thousands of funding rounds on SeedLegals, we see that founders, companies, sell a median of 15% equity in a funding round. So if you look at this graph, in some funding rounds, founders give away or sell 30% equity. That's far too much. In some, it's like a couple of percent, which is great, but it probably means either you're raising too little or your company, you've picked an insanely high valuation that will come to bite you later. And instead, the magic area is about 15%. So this means that if you're raising £100,000, your valuation statistically would be £500,000. So at the end of the funding round, your valuation is 500 plus 100, your post-money valuation, 600,000. The investors own 100 out of 600, which is 16%, which is about that 15% magic number. So really where I'm going is the way to value your company in the early stages is almost as simple as taking the amount that you want to raise and multiplying it by 5. So the investors own 1 in 6, 15%, which is genius, except I've just moved the goalposts. So instead of having to figure out the valuation, you need to figure out how much to raise. And here also, there's a great article on it at SeedLegals Resources Deal Data, how to value your company. And here, really, in the UK, funding rounds fit a fairly standard pattern. And it goes like this. Number one, nobody invests just on a PowerPoint because ideas are cheap and implementation is expensive. The investors want to see something built, whether it's mock-ups, designs, user validation, or even a working prototype. They want to see something. And the more they see, the higher the valuation you can justify. So thing one, we see founders putting £26,000 of their own money into the business before the first funding round. That's the median amount. Some is a lot more, some less, but expect to have to put some of your money into the business first. Then the next thing is to raise money, and often it's from friends and family investors, maybe raising £50,000 at maybe a £400,000 or thereabouts pre-money valuation. The next thing is your classic in the UK, raising maybe £150,000 from angel investors, giving them their SEIS and EIS tax benefits. And so for Sylvie, you know, the UK early stage funding rounds are dominated. More than 80% of early stage investment is from angel investors, so individuals investing and getting tax benefits where with SEIS, they can write off 50% of their investment, deduct that from this year or last year's income tax. And once the companies raise more than £150,000 in SEIS, then they can raise 15 million in EIS, and investors can write off or deduct 30%. And also investors, if they keep their shares for 3 years, pay no tax. So really, in an early stage funding round in the UK, angel investors are your friends. You're going to go and try to reach angel investors, and Dan will tell you a bit more about that. But if you go to, you know, funds too early, they will say, come back later. So your next typical round in the UK might be raising £150,000 from angel investors at a valuation of maybe £800,000 to £1 million, depending on how much you've built. And then your next round is your classic seed round, maybe raising somewhere between 300 and 700,000 pounds from a combination of angel investors investing 5,000 to 50,000 pounds each. But that's still quite a lot of angel investors. So you might have an early stage fund, an SEIS or EIS fund, as part of that seed round. And typically you'd be doing that, raising, let's say, 500,000 pounds at a £2.5 million pre-money valuation. And this would typically be at the stage where you've got a product launched, you've got some traction, you've got some users, you don't yet have revenue. So it's shown that people want your products, and at this point you can raise it a valuation above 2 million. And the next step might be Series A, where you might raise a few million at a valuation of 10 or 15 million or beyond, once you have got traction, revenue, users. And normally you might do that if you've got £1 million or more in revenue, then you might be in sort of Series A territory. So £100,000 a month revenue is at the point where VCs start getting interested. So that's your typical UK funding round pattern. And it doesn't mean you have to do each of these steps. You can skip go, you can get directly to your SEIS round, your angel round, or even beyond, depending on how much the founders have funded the business themselves initially. So once upon a time, that's exactly what you needed to do, is you'd raise each round. So your goal is to raise enough to get you to the next round. And each round, you're going to raise 3 to 5 times the last round at 3 to 5 times the valuation. Welcome to the 12 to 18 month funding round pattern. But it's immensely stressful for a founder. You have to get all these investors on the bus together to go at the same time. And what if you need money today? But it's months till you can raise. What if you've raised all this money and slowly it's going down? How do you make sure you don't run out of money? So welcome to agile fundraising. So agile fundraising is where you can start raising ahead of a funding round, then do a funding round, then top up a round to turn fundraising into a sort of more continuous opportunity. So there's a new product, we call it a seed fast. In the US, it's called a SAFE, or it's also known as an advanced subscription agreement. So seed fast in the UK is an agreement that says the investor gives you money now individually. So you don't have to have all the investors coming together for a round. They'll give you money now, and you will give them shares in exchange when you do your next round at a valuation to be determined in the next round. And the high point of someone using this is, and by the way, you know, to Jayesh, your point about how to find investors. So here I'm going to stop screen sharing and just talk for a moment more, which is, I think everything on how to do fundraising in the UK is beautifully summed up by the founders of Honeypot Dating, which is a dating app called Thursday. So they've just raised something like £2 million in 10 days. And what did they do? Well, they're two founders who are quite extrovert. So they made a campaign that said, we're going to raise £1.2 million in 10 days. They created a social media campaign. They took photos of themselves standing on the banks of the Thames with a piece of cardboard saying, raising 1.2 million by next Friday. They managed to get Ascension Ventures, which is an SEIS fund, on board with £100,000 investment. And having a lead investor, or like a known first investor, opens the doors to everything else. And they did that with a seed fast on SeedLegals. And then over the next 10 days, they proceeded to do something like 50 seed fasts. It was insane. They were out there getting out, talking to people. I think every time somebody said, we're interested in investing, they used their phone and sent them a seed fast agreement for £5,000, 10,000, 20,000, 50,000, saying that we'll take your money now, it will convert into shares when we do our next round. And they just got on with meeting people. And really, the reason investors invest, I think, is one of two things. In the early stages, it's because they believe in the founders. They see the hype. They see, I want to be in. It's the fear of missing out. So once they had their first investor on board, they made as much noise as possible about this amazing new app that was launching. We've got traction. And then people went, I have no idea. Dating apps are not really me. Will it be big or not? I have no idea, but these guys seem to be everywhere. So I want in. And so they managed to get other investors that then created the momentum to get others. And of course, now they've got their fundraising done initially, and they can then use that money to get to the next step. But they were completely shameless in promotion. I mean, you know, not all of us are going to stand on the wall on the embankment on the side of the Thames with a big cardboard with crayon on it saying raising 1.2 or bust by Friday. But by doing that, they managed to get social media engaged. And I think that's really the key. The next thing, of course, is once you have got your initial funding, you now need to build and ship a product. And once your product is out, your later stage investors are going to be looking at your traction to see whether they want to invest further. So you have to deliver the goods. And if you pick too high a valuation, it might be hard to justify it later. So anyway, that's it from me, the 101 on founder agreements, giving equity to advisors, valuing your company, and then creating that campaign that goes to investors. And of course, with the quick SeedLegals plug, once you found your investors, and even before, hop onto SeedLegals. If you're UK, French, or Irish company, it's a place to do all the legals. You still have to find the investors and do your pitch deck. Dan can help you with that, but we will help you with all the legals for your funding round and your team. And if you want to know more, head over to SeedLegals or drop me an email at anthony@seedlegals.com, and we're here to help for whatever you need. Thank you, everyone.
Anthony, oops, dropped the mic. Here we go. Need a headset like yours. Thanks very much indeed. Just to reiterate to everybody, we are recording this. We will be sending out all the contact information on everybody as well. So you'll get Anthony's, Dan Ballins and Dan from Forresters, who's coming up next, information. And we will move on for now. I just say anybody at the moment, and I'm not sure how you're stretched for time here, Anthony, are you around for a little while or?
I'll stick around for a few minutes, but if there are any questions,
okay, well, let's open. Yeah, pop them in the chat now, or if anybody's got any direct questions, please feel free right now, because Anthony's got to shoot.
Neil, there were some good questions before. I wonder maybe we should open the videos up to just ask some more questions to see if, well, either Anthony, whoever wants to field them.
Sure.
Seemed like a good way.
Go for it. Any questions? Pop them in the chat, and then we can pop on video and turn to you.
Whilst we're waiting for questions, Jayesh, in terms of finding investors, the investors love receiving requests all the time from investors, but they hardly have time to process any of them. If you want to maximize the chances that they're actually going to pay attention, first of all, be selective. Choosing investors are very much restricted. Typically, VCs, VCs at least, institutionals, are very much restricted by the organizations that fund them. They're, LPs, the private equity, pension pots, those kind of things. There's criteria. There might have to be on the life sciences. There might be tax breaks, whatever it may be. Check to see if this is the kind of company that this kind of angel or VC funds in any way. Make sure they've got nothing competing. Speak to the persons that have been invested before. Angels and VCs will more likely pick up the phone or the email if it's from someone they have invested in before. So they typically will also pick up the phone more often if it's someone that they know, a buddy, a scout, someone they work with, someone they used to work with in a previous company, someone they would have a beer with, whatever it may be. Actually, if it's a cold call, it's a lot less likely to happen at the end of the day. So
I think, Dan, what we'll do, there is a question here for Anthony. What we're going to do is just give you an idea, everybody here, we're going to close off with Anthony so he can go. We're then going to get Dan from Forresters on, and then what we're doing after that is we're going to open up, and Dan Ballin, myself, anybody welcome to join in. What we're going to focus on there is actually, you know, raising capital. How do you meet angels? How can you get interest and everything else? And that's an exciting bit later on for you, for want of a better word. So Anthony, there is a question in there for you regarding SeedFast, I think. Do you want me to read it?
Yeah, no. So the question, great question from Emma. So why would an investor put their money into the business without knowing the valuation upfront? And that's a great question. And had you asked someone a few years ago, it would have been a slightly crazy idea. But the world's moved on, and I think it started the fashion in the US, where the cost of legals is insanely high. It's like $50,000 to do the legals for a funding round, and takes forever. So Y Combinator came up with this concept of a safe, as they called it. You give me money now, really simple docs. I promise to give you shares later. I will use your money to grow the business so that it's useful for me. And in return for giving you, for your taking the slightly more risky approach of giving money up front, I will give you a discount compared to what the other investors pay later. So you might give the early investor, the SeedFast investor, 10 or 20% discount. And I must say, this has now moved from something that you'd have to work really hard to explain to investors to something many, I wouldn't quite say most investors know. But actually what's turned out to be quite interesting in the last few months is the hottest startups are now in huge demand from investors. So your goal is to have over commitment, you know, to be overfunded in a sense. And that's what the Honeypot dating team managed to do. They had more interest from investors than they wanted to raise. So what they said to investors is, actually, if you want a foot in the door now, I'll take your money by a seed fast so that you get your foot in the door later with the round. So the short answer to your question is, not all investors are happy with something ahead of the round, but I'd say about 80% of them are, and there are at least 1,000 seed fasts a year done on SeedLegals. So the data points show that it's definitely worth approaching investors with that. And the idea is, you know, you'll get a 10 or 20% discount. You'll help us get there faster because we don't need to have everyone on the bus together. And that's the win-win for both of us.
I think there's another couple in there for you, Anthony.
Okay, so
close this down, or whenever.
All right, so very quickly. So from Emma, the next thing is it's debt, not equity. Actually, not quite, because there's something called a convertible note. And a convertible note says, I will give you money, and then in due course, either you'll repay my money with interest, or you'll give me shares instead. That's your classic convertible note. But there's a problem. Because I get repaid and I get interest, possibly, it doesn't qualify for SEIS and EIS. So the investors, UK angel investors, cannot use a convertible note to get these tax savings. And that drives the UK startup economy. And so clever people came up with a variant of it called an advanced subscription agreement. We call it a seed fast, which is like half of a convertible note. And it's really called an advanced subscription. So the investor is giving you money and it will convert into equity. So it's not debt because you never have to repay it, which is great for your business as well. It can't bankrupt you, unlike debt. And it doesn't sit on your balance sheet like debt. It's just an investment that you haven't yet given shares for. And that's really important so that it can qualify for SEIS and EIS. All right, so one question from Jayesh, which is regarding SEIS, can the 50% tax liability be reduced beforehand rather than claiming tax back from HMRC? And the answer is no. It's a fantastic arrangement in the UK. It's the investor, well, the answer is partially no. So the investor invests in your business and then can deduct 50% of that investment from this year's income tax, or they can backdate it to their last year's income tax. But of course, they can only do this once the shares have been issued and once you've given them their SEIS certificates, which you would apply for after the round. You can do this on SeedLegals. And once they've got their SEIS certificate in their hot hands, then they can go to their accountant and go, in this year's tax return or retrospectively in last year's tax return, can I deduct this? So it's a good thing to use to go, hey, you can even use this retrospectively to deduct things from your last year tax return. All right, last question then, which is, if your company, and maybe this is one for Sylvie and I see for Jackie as well, will investors be able to get these tax breaks, SEIS, even if your company is not in the UK? And the answer is yes. So SEIS, EIS tax deductions apply to anyone who pays tax in the UK because it's a deduction from your UK income tax. But the company can really be based anywhere. If you're not a UK company, and this is little known, you can still offer your investors, UK investors, SEIS. But to do that, you have to register as a foreign entity in the UK. So if you drop us a chat on SeedLegals web chat, we can explain more. So you've got a bit of homework to do to be able to qualify. You'll probably want to get what's called SEIS Advance Assurance to show your investors they'll qualify. But I think it's a fantastic hook. Of course, you might, like Sylvie, want to incorporate in the UK, but actually, even if you do have a foreign company, you can register as a foreign entity with Companies House in the UK and still be able to offer SEIS to your investors. And now I will hand over to Dan and Dan.
Anthony, thank you very much indeed. As I say, can't stress enough to everybody the resources that are available for free on SeedLegals site, plus also the actual, you know, from what Anthony mentioned earlier, founders agreements and such like. So please have a look, get in contact with Anthony. Now I'd like to introduce you Dan, a very valued partner of ours who's been with us more or less from the start, I think. And so Dan from Forresters, please take the stage.
Okay, thanks Neil, thanks Anthony as well. Great advice there. Yeah, my name's Dan Rusby-Gale from Forresters. This is a short interlude to talk about IP, and then we'll get back to raising capital with Dan and Neil at the end. So yeah, I'm a patent attorney working in the field of electromechanical inventions and computer software. Yeah, I work with startups often, and I've often asked the question, is it worth spending all this money on protecting your IP, or should I put the money into the business and help grow the business and the million other things that need money throwing at them? And yeah, I answer the question with a question, which is, how would you feel if in a few years' time a competitor comes along and basically copies exactly what you're doing? Would your business be able to survive such competition? So yeah, I should add that having IP protection, having a patent doesn't guarantee you success. It doesn't guarantee money, far from it. But it does add value to your business, having the IP protection in place. And what we're talking about today is attracting investors, getting investment. Having IP protection is attractive for investors. So with that in mind, I will share my slides now. I'll go through it pretty quickly. There's quite a lot in here, but we're recording the session. And yeah, feel free to put some questions in the chat box, and I'll put my email address in there as well, if you want to contact me directly. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, hopefully you can see my slides there. So yep, hello again. Let's kick off here. So I'll be talking about the three main forms of IP, patents, trademarks, and registered designs. There are other IP rights, some of which are listed here: copyright, trade secrets, and various other specific rights relating to plants and medicines and that kind of thing. But yeah, I'll be talking about patents, trademarks, and designs. Let's look at some case studies. So kicking off with trademarks. So yeah, a trademark can be registered to protect your company name, product name, slogans, logos, graphics, colors, and much more. It's all to do with protecting your brand. And yeah, over here we've got the registered trademark symbol, and obviously the registered trademark for McDonald's. You know, these things are key to developing a brand, and yeah, you want to be registering your trademark to stop others from trading under your name and basically stealing the goodwill that you've developed, and you know, trading under your name and using your product names and so on. So if you're a startup, you're probably thinking about you know, what should I call my company? What should I name my product? And my advice, if you want to improve the chances of being able to get trademark protection to protect your company name or product name and that kind of thing, choose something which is distinctive, i.e. it's pretty different, it stands out, and a name which is not descriptive of the goods or services that you're offering. So yeah, the good thing about trademark protection is it lasts indefinitely, provided that you pay a renewal fee, usually every 10 years.
Dan, can I ask a question? Just whilst the moment.
Yeah, sure.
Why not descriptive of the name of the product?
It's one of the fights that you come up against with a patent office to convince, you know, it's one of the requirements to get trademark protection in trademark law, that the mark is not descriptive. So you can't. It's because words are in common use every day, and if you were to protect a word which is in common use, that would be, you know, that wouldn't be very fair to stop others from using a commonly used word which describes something. So you know, if you're a hairdresser, you couldn't go and register the trademark hairdresser, because that would effectively enable you to stop others from using hairdresser in, you know, general use. So I think that's why it's in the law.
So when you say descriptive, actually the word, okay. I mean, I'll give you a real, I mean, my dad owned, for instance, I did own a hairdresser, bizarrely enough. So, and it was called Hair for Flair. So,
yeah.
So he bought a hairdresser. He bought a hairdresser because he liked the girl who owned it. That was it.
Right.
It had nothing to do with it. And my dad didn't know the first thing about hairdressers. But
Okay.
yeah, it was self-explanatory though.
Yes, exactly right. Yeah. Yeah.
But that is allowed if you buy. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Dan. Yeah, I'll move on to registered design protection. So yeah, this is another form of IP, can be another chink in your armor, if you like. So a registered design will protect the appearance of the whole or part of a product. To register a design, it must be a novel, it must be a new design, and have individual character in the sense that it creates a different impression on users. So yeah, you can protect your designs for up to 25 years if you pay your renewal fee every 5 years. And pretty much anything is registerable. We've got some examples here: packaging, parts of products, and as logos, computer icons, typefaces, graphic designs, all that kind of thing. So you can protect the look and you know, appearance of your products or your websites and that kind of thing. Moving on to patents. Now, yeah, over here in Europe and most countries in the world, we operate a first to file system. So this means that it's important to get an early filing date for your patent application, and the protection will run from that first filing date. And a patent is your deal with the government, essentially, in return for telling the world about your invention and exactly how you're doing what you're doing, you can potentially get up to 20 years monopoly to stop others from using your invention. And to get a patent, the invention must be novel in the sense that it's new, and also inventive in the sense that the invention's not an obvious combination of what's gone before. And also the invention mustn't be excluded from patentability. There's various exclusions such as computer programs, medical treatments, methods of playing games, etc. But yeah, my job as a patent attorney is to steer around these exclusions and get you a patent. So the process runs roughly like this. You will file your initial priority application. We usually advise filing in the UK first because it's relatively cheap compared to other countries. And you get a search report back pretty quickly after 3 or 4 months. The search report will cite some prior art against your patent application, and the patent office will be trying to show your invention isn't new, it's not inventive. And so this search report will give you a good indication of whether you're likely to get a patent and what the scope of protection might be. So yeah, this timeline here, if you might be interested in protection in other countries, and you will need a patent in every country where you want protection. So the typical route for startups would be to file in the UK first, get your filing date, and then within 12 months file an international or PCT patent application. This essentially keeps the door open for you to apply for patent applications in almost every country around the world. So it buys you a bit more time to make the decision about where your markets are, where you want protection, and also to raise the funds to file these foreign patent applications, because that's when it gets pretty expensive. Okay, looking at a real life example, old looking iPhone here. There's a whole manner of different IP rights here. We've got Apple and iPhone registered as trademarks. The technology itself, the way the phone works, is protected by many hundreds of patents. Apple will hold some trade secrets back, which they don't want to tell anyone about. The appearance of the phone will be protected by designs. The interface as well will be registered to stop others copying the look of the phone, as Samsung allegedly tried to do. Yeah, the code itself on the phone will be protected by copyright, and that copyright subsists automatically. There's no need to register that. So yeah, all manner of IP rights all in one product. So yeah, what do your investors want to see? So first of all, are you going to get sued by someone else who has IP protection in place? And you can investigate this by doing a freedom to operate analysis. Look at your competitors' IP portfolios, see what they're doing, and make sure you're not going to be treading on any toes and infringing other people's rights. Secondly, have you protected what you're doing, and how have you protected it? Have you got an IP strategy in place, identifying the IP, the trademarks and possible patent filings, registered design filings? Then, have you actually filed for anything yet? Have you got any search reports to give an indication about patent protection viability? And have you put together a pipeline of how to move forward with protecting your IP? It's for patents, it's really critical that you file your patent application before you disclose the technology to the public. Otherwise, that disclosure might end up being citable against your patent application, and you may end up not being able to get a patent. Lastly, I should mention Patent Box. This is a government-run scheme in the UK which can give great corporation tax savings. And so, yeah, it effectively reduces your corporation tax from the current rate, which I think is 19%, down to 10%. And this is the corporation tax that you pay on the profits derived from a patented invention. And this is an invention that's been patented in the UK. And the profits can be the worldwide profits from that invention. So, you know, if you're making a lot of profit, it can be significant savings in the UK if you pay UK tax. So, very quick sales pitch. How can Forresters help you? We can run free 30-minute consultations. At the moment, we're doing these by video. Hopefully, one day in person, we can do those. We can look at the IP in your business, put together an IP strategy for you, and yeah, put together a roadmap for filing for patents, registered design, and trademark protection. We can help you with the IP section of any pitch documents and put together fixed price filing quotes for getting the protection in place, as well as looking at your competitors and carrying out a patent landscape to see whether, you know, whether you're able to patent things, and also whether you've got the freedom to operate and do what you're doing. So we've got a large team, all different areas covered. I'm in the, as I said, the electromechanical field, but we've got a pharmaceutical and biotech side and a whole trademark team as well. So we've got all areas covered. And I'll just finish with this. This is a quick success story. We had this chap came in to see us. He was a real garden shed inventor. He'd worked in the building trade and had realised that there's a need for an easy way to mark drilling points up on a wall. So if you imagine you're holding up a cabinet on the wall, most builders will put a pencil through the hole and try and mark the holes, where to do the drilling, so that you can mount your cabinet up on the wall. But this is fraught with problems with breaking pencils and inaccurate marking, that kind of thing. So he developed this marksman marking tool, which essentially sprays a cross of chalk on the wall behind the cabinet, so you can just push it in quickly and mark the hole really accurately. This apparently saves an enormous amount of time and is very useful. So he came to us with the initial sketches of this idea. We did a search to see what else was out there, if there was anything similar. It turned out that wasn't. We then drafted it and filed a UK patent application, got the patent granted in the UK. He went down the international patent application route and secured protection in all his key markets, US, China, and Europe and other countries. We registered Marksman as his trademark, and we also helped him out with his paperwork for Dragon's Den. And he went on Dragon's Den, and all 5 dragons offered to invest, and off the back of this publicity, he's now stocked in all major DIY stores across the UK. So yeah, this is just a quick success story about having IP protection can really help with your business and yeah, help you succeed. So that's all I was going to say. I realise there's quite a lot in there. If you've got any questions, feel free to pop them in the box, chat box. I'll stop sharing my video now. There we go.
Yeah, hi Dan, there is a question in there for you.
Hi. Yes.
From Krish.
Thanks, Krish. Yeah, is it possible for IP registration for a software product? So yeah, I get asked this question a lot. The answer is yes, provided that the a lot of inventions involve software these days. Almost everything electronic has got an element of software in it, and it will all depend on whether the software has a technical effect in the real world. and this is very subjective on exactly what you're doing. So feel free to drop me an email afterwards if you want to ask specifics. But if you're solving a technical problem in the real world, then yes, you are likely to be able to patent the software product. If what you're doing is more of a business aim and you're just processing data for the purpose of identifying customers or that kind of thing, that's moving away from the technical solution to a technical problem. It's more of a business solution, and patent protection becomes a little more difficult. So yes, in answer to your question, the answer is yes, possibly. Okay, I can't see any more questions. I can't see any more questions at the moment, but
no, that's okay.
I'll be around.
Does anybody have a direct question for Dan they'd like to ask now, or we're going to carry on? We're going to open up with Daniel Ballin, and I think come back to more the importance. I'd just like to say something on the IP things. My background, for you guys who don't know me, is financial services, private equity. Literally since I left university, I worked in Asia. My background's in Asia. My business partner's in Dubai. I own funds. We have great connections with funds. Some funds with startups and such like raising capital will only invest in a company with some form of IP. And again, reiterate, recently we've had 3 companies who presented at our events when they were physical back towards the end of 2019 who've actually recently been on Dragon's Den, and all 3 have received final dragons on board, and that's because of the IP. And like anybody, funds and individuals realize the importance of IP. There was one, it wasn't ours, but on Dragon's Den recently, where I think it was Tuga Silliman offered them to take out the company for 90%, run it for them, give them royalties and everything else because he wanted the IP. So I'd encourage everybody to take advantage, if that is the route or the source that you've got, to take advantage of Forresters 30-minute free consultation. I'm sure it can run a little bit longer. It might not just be cut off nowadays because of the the virtual world as well, but absolutely vitally important. And it enables, as I say, once you've got that, it opens up selective, I would say, funds, SEI, SEIS funds and such like, plus later VCs who will look at the value of an IP going forward. So Dan, thanks very much for that.
Thanks, Neil.
As I say, we're recording all this. Dan, do you want to come in now?
Yeah.
Anybody else got any questions from Dan for Forresters? Just please put them in the chat, or I will be sending out links to everybody's email addresses. But Dan, if you just for now want to pop it in the chat, because I can copy the chat and send that out later as well. As I say, the video will be on YouTube, or our YouTube site tomorrow, and again, all the information and the links to that will be sent out as well. So anyway, Dan, I won't introduce you.
Yeah. I'm Dan Ballin. I'm a exited startup, exited founder, and I've been working with tech startups now for about 20 years in various capacities. Everything from scouting from them around the world to corporate venturing, right down to also my company, past 5 years, has been helping raise funds, advise them, get them into America, and we also provide a killer pitch deck service. I'm keen to know, before we kick off, there were some cracking questions for Anthony. If there's any particular challenges that you're facing in your business that you'd either like to ask me, or maybe to ask Dan Rusky-Gale if he's still around as well. So just to open it out. See, we've got a few people, including a few people that I've met before. Any questions? Or are we all shy today? Definitely easier in a room, isn't it, Neil?
Yeah, it's so much easier.
Okay, so I'm going to open this out to a few. Let's open this out to a few questions I'm going to ask. In terms of raising capital for, it's one of the key things you're probably here for. Where would you guys say is the best source of capital that you can get for your company? No ideas at all? Sylvie, where would you say is the best source of capital?
Sorry, is it possible to repeat the question because I didn't?
Yeah, where is the best? What's the best capital you can get for your startup? Where would you get it?
The best capital, I think, but I'm also convinced, is the capital the clients pay. Yeah.
Exactly.
So clients who pay for your service or product, but to get there, you need some extra money most of the time.
Not really. I mean, there's actually even if you're going to raise money, you've got to put a few, but it's typically you've got to bootstrap something, put some money of your own money. If you can avoid getting equity, it's often the best thing. I advised a particular startup called Vesta 3 years ago, and they decided not to take capital on and funded it with a couple of days consultancy from his own company, and took a slow bet with it and decided just when I met him, he was earning £7,000 from the business, but you could see he was bringing in enough cash, and with my help, he was able to increase that amount. And in the end, he didn't take any capital equity, and he now has got a turnover of £1 million and just hired his 17th employer, for instance. So, you know, if you're, sometimes taking on equity is not necessarily the best reason. There is possibly, you want to look at the various scenarios and models for you. Equity is not, it comes with, need a measured approach at the end of the day. There's plenty of stories of people who started a business with £500 and great success stories. Doesn't always happen, but you need to see if this is something you can do. I sometimes fear that startups think that actually their job is to raise capital. Actually, job is to run a company at the end of the day. Run a company, and that means other skills are required as well in terms of hiring people, in terms of sales, and in terms of leadership as well. It's not all about raising investment. If you can get it though from your customers, from profitable customers, it is the best way. Any suggestion on who else maybe will help you other sources of capital at the end of the day? Okay, so another one is your suppliers. I know it might sound something surprising, but actually suppliers will often consider paying you later, particularly as they will be more sympathetic to a startup than they will be if you're a big corporate. So it's always worth asking. They can only ever say no, and they will allow you to pay at a later stage. Typically, at the end of the day, a lot of startups are after funding just as a stop break whilst they're waiting for their profitable customers to come through at the end of the day. So sometimes see if you can spread your money across at the end of the day. Also worth asking the classic 3 Fs, the friends, families, and friends and families at the end of the day, or sometimes known as friends, families, and fools. Actually, typically, if you ask family, Uncle Bob is not very interested in typically, in your business at the end of the day. He might not even ask you for the money back. He just doesn't want an awkward conversation at Christmas. So it's always worth asking. And the most successful, and at the end of the day, if you're an investor and you're not willing to put your hands in your pockets, and you're not willing to ask your close friends, and you're not willing to ask Auntie Jane and Uncle Bob, then they're going to start wondering, oh, actually, why should I put my money in at the end of the day? So typically, if you look at the statistics, your average startup, the founder will have typically put in at least £25,000 of their own money. In my view, entrepreneurism is all about actual risk. That is the main skill that you end up taking as a startup, whether it be in terms of raising money, actually in terms of all the other skills that you're going to require in sales and the calculations at the end of the day. And putting a bit of your own cash shows something, provides a clear signal at the end of the day. Other places you might want to look at are startup loans. You can go to startup loans, which is probably underlined from the British Bank at the end of the day. Any idea how much you can get from the startup loan? If you were to go and get a startup loan from any one of you guys? Jackie, Michael?
Sharon's put in grants as well. Sorry, did you just cover that one?
Grants, or another word is free money, as I call it.
Yeah.
Getting grants is a great way. It does sound alarm signals when you see a startup, and this is in personal opinion more than anything else, when you see startups and all they've done for the past 5 years is gone from grant to grant to grant to grant, because an investor will be interested in, and actually, when are you going to exit? When are you going to start bringing profitable cash? But whether it actually, it's also subjective, is whether investors see that you brought in a load of cash from grants, whether it makes any difference to their opinion. There used to be, if you'd asked me 3 years ago, some funding from some grants that you were successful and you got a new technology and you've invented a new thing was a good indicator and a signal that maybe supported you investors at the end of the day. But it will at least provide you some cash, and certainly allows you to get past that niche to fund the R&D stage. And investors don't want to fund R&D; they want to fund sales at the end of the day. So this is it does serve a purpose. Anyone else said anything else just before I plow on?
No, not at the moment. I just, go on.
Yeah, no, time.
So no, carry on. Now, I'd like to go back actually to something, and unfortunately, Anthony's had to go, but which was an interesting one earlier, and back to the company you mentioned on the dating side regarding social media.
What was the question on social media?
No, it was Anthony said that this company had raised X by putting basically a cardboard box around themselves on the embankment saying we're raising XYZ. But I think as people and startups look at trying to raise, they have to access every single possible form from their LinkedIn, from their family, friends, LinkedIn, their social media contacts and such like, to get the word out there of what they're actually trying to do. What's your thoughts on that? I don't know. It's the numbers game.
One other
isn't it,
area
really,
where we can talk about raising money is from crowdfunding. Your Indiegogos, your Kickstarters, your Crowdcube, for instance, which my company is a partner, for instance. But I'm a little bit cautious of the crowdfunding platforms, because of the fact that if you look at a cap table and you can see a gazillion number of investors on it from the first thing you actually want to do is understand how you can buy them out, and that's what the investors are interested in. It can get rather messy, even though it can be sometimes a very interesting way to raise investment. But the reason I flag up crowdfunding is it's often a great way to get advocates and great publicity depending on the nature of your product. So something to consider is actually maybe this is what we should do. If you go to someone like Seeders or Crowdcube, they typically are only interested in raising investment for you, most of their startups on it will tell you that they've typically raised 50% of their investment already for their round, and they're just at the very least possibly going to top it up. So, but if you want to top it up and maybe flag the drum, wave the flag and roll the drums on how great you are and build some ambassadors for your new funky product, this is often a great way to do it. Other ways you might be giving money. Most of you guys, as Anthony says, will be raising from business angels. Business angels, though, are typically interested in, as I said earlier, in a particular area, whether they're interested in deep tech, whether they're in, which is an area I typically do, whether they're interested in, marketplaces. So pay attention if you're going to go to, some business angels. But one of the reasons you want business angels is, and one of the reasons VCs like business angels is, they spend a lot of time with you. VCs, once they get you, proportionally, they are often on to their next deal because they've got, they've got a business to run. Business angels, a lot more retired, typically more relaxed. They will often spend quite a long time with you, helping you with your sales, helping you with your partners, helping you be able with your expansion policy, all those kind of things you need help with. So one of the key things when you're looking for is to interview your business angel as well. Don't just take the money because they're offering it. Actually, the other thing you should look at is angels tend to, the successful angels invest in crowds. They invest with their buddies. They share ideas. They will talk it over a beer. They will, or they will, someone like me will invest with Neil, for instance. One of us will be good in numbers. The other one will be good, the other one will be good on sales. The other one else will be good on understanding their technologies. And so, and that's one of the reasons why you get sort of, syndicates doing well as well. And, like sort of SFC, for instance, and, or other kind of, fintech circle, for instance, all where they're talking to one another. They sometimes put the money in a pool together and then they make the decisions together. But more often than not, it's just done on a bit of a nod. This is a good one, isn't it, Neil? Yeah, it is. All right, I tell you, I'll go in if you go in, and we can share the ideas about it as well. Equally, so we can sometimes speak to one another and think, you know what, I'm not sure about this one. There's some issues with it. Let's see if we can just have a chat with them, tell them we'll be interested if they fix out their term sheet or fix out their structure. So they're your friends, the ecosystem that you're here. Actually, the whole startup system, before I scare you with all the nasty stories on what can happen, you will find there's a lot of friendly people in it. The lawyers want to help the young startups out there. The accountants want to. They're not all going to charge you, a fortune. We've already heard from Dan, talk to you about, some of the intellectual properties. They will spend time, they will have a discussion with you, and they give a free service, which probably is only going to last so long, but actually they're often, if it's 10 minutes more, they're not going to be too bothered. I can point you to a bunch of lawyers that I use, often are more than happy, to be able to help to say they've been contributed to the next big thing if they're going to have the battery that lasts forever, for instance, that one of you guys have invented. So yeah, business angels, business networks, seed funds at the end of the day, all quite relevant before you kind of get into the worlds of VCs. But even the worlds of VCs, when you're into the EIS funding, which is typically when you're only going to get about 30%, 30% kind of break, for instance, as opposed to the 50%. And by the way, SEIS and EIS is probably the best invention and most disruptive in the world of startups that's currently around in the whole of Europe. It's a really unique thing. And it's probably Jenny Tooth from UKBA will talk to you about how fantastic this is and what a difference it has made. So pay attention to the terms and conditions, particularly if you're young on your SEIS, because you only get it for a few years at the beginning, at the end of the day. Make sure you understand how, that it's only applicable for the first £150,000 as well. And some investors in the pre-seed, some investors, including some in the early stage pre-seed, VC world, will only interested in SEIS, and equally so, some are only interested in EIS as well. So, so tax breaks maybe is another one. The other one may be a particular area they're interested in as well. So, and then you've got your follow-on investors as well. Typically, the venture capital, they look at how much amount of money they take from their pension funds, from their LPs. They typically say for every £1 they're going to put onto a good startup, they're going to spend probably 4 more in the sessions, in the investment rounds after. Make sure when you speak to your investor, you're going to not just ask them for the money. Say, you guys also, do you typically put in the round after as well, for those startups that are promising, or if this particular criteria are made? Makes a big difference. It could save you a journey going around, having to kiss all those frogs, asking them all again if they, that they do follow-on rounds, or if they've got relationships. So, any other questions at this stage? Okay. So typically your seed funds are looking at typically the SEIS, 150K turnover. Your angel syndicates will often be looking though for often 2 million more. When you're Series A, trying to find those that are in between the gap in the middle, I think sometimes that's the hardest. And then the other ones is your crowdfunding as well. Another one you might want to look at is corporate venturing. Corporate venturing, actually, they have a lot, it's small fry at the end of the day, investing, getting money from them. But they will often spend a lot of money on startups, whatever stage you are at. What's more important, though, is the strategic fit. I worked for a corporate venture at the end of the day, and they were interested in the startups in a particular category in a very niche space. So understand before you approach them, whether you approach a Cisco or a BT or a biomed firm, what is the particular areas and what particular geographies that is aligned to their particular business, because you'll probably find there's a very niche amount. Intel, for instance, spend quite a lot on startups at the end of the day, but only on a few that are really interested in solid state, for instance, microchip technology. I bet there's probably not that many of you in this room. So think, what are you doing? What is the kind of company that would be interested in it? You know, should we? So, because there's probably only a few companies that are interested, but it's worth, even if you know, and they're probably not going to be interested yet, but it's worth getting on their radar now at the end of the day. Someone mentioned about advisors, talked about Anthony. I actually do like to see company advisors, but make sure you choose your Tim Berners-Lee at the end of the day, and not someone who, you know, has a good LinkedIn profile alone, or someone who just, or maybe the one who, there's plenty of advisors who kind of hang out at Annabelle's kind of situation. Choose someone who is good and can do something that you're struggling with. They've got a background in sales. You know, they were a director at Tesco's, they were a director in BP at the end of the day. Okay, I think I'm going to stop at this point, Neil, unless you want me to particularly go on to a particular area.
No, Dan, I think it's great. As I say, we're here to try and help people. What we're doing at the moment,
term sheets, valuations, we can cover, you know, now's the time to hear from you and hear your questions.
Yeah. What Dan and I are working on as well is like an investment, say, call it investment club, call it a networking club, whereby we, over the years, especially more recently over the last 18 months with founders not being able to get out and meet people, we've had a large amount of requests from founders who just want to talk to founders to see what the problems they've got are, whether it's capital raising, what the negatives are, what this is and what's that is. So we're setting up this club that's going to be literally everything for everybody, not just an investors club or a founders club or a startup club or that. But what it's going to do, you know, we're talking about doing, like, once we can get back to it, Founders Friday. So we'll have an event in the city, you know, come and have a couple of drinks, meet founders. Come the next week, meet potential investors, because it's important to interact. And because you've got a founder in your business, and it might be completely different to something else, you can talk to people and interact. And again, it's just about getting out messages, building networks to gain possible investments. And that's what we're now building, having, as I say, well, we had 2,000 investors come to our events physically in 2019 before the world went into lockdown, call it what you want. As I say, our connections, our partners who you've seen today, we're growing those, and we're here to help. You know, we do our pitch events for SeedLegals companies that, you know, we just charge at the moment to pitch to 60, 70 potential angel investors, you know, £100. Physical events are a bit more expensive because we obviously have to hire the venue. But I think going forward as well, that the world's changed, perception's changed. We'll continue holding virtual events even when we can hold physical ones, because it just gets messaged out to everybody about what you're doing. Yeah, and you know, we're putting our resources together, from Dan, from SeedLegals, from Dan at Forresters, from new partners and such like, to help companies raise money. So again, I'd encourage everybody to get in touch, ask any questions. If you're shy, that's fine. Send us emails and we'll respond.
Keen to understand what are the people we have on the call here. A few bit of chatter on the chat here as well. Sarah, Stuart, Emma, any keen to know what your startups do? If you're feeling shy, you don't have to put your camera on. I've come across Jackie.
Sorry,
Hi.
I've got a quick question. I'm Nero from Singapore. And I was just wondering what sort of infrastructure you have outside of UK.
I've got clients all around the
Well,
world. So, I mean,
yeah,
Neil doesn't even live in the UK.
No. Nirav, I've lived in Singapore, spent a number of years there. After Hong Kong, I found that even more expensive than Hong Kong. But my network, I've got, I don't know, 14,000 people on LinkedIn, which we're now trying to narrow down into the club. I'd say probably 70–80% of them are in Asia, whether it be Hong Kong, Singapore, Malaysia, or Thailand, where I live normally, when I can get in. So we have a massive network. We've held capital raising events in KL, we've held capital raising events in Singapore, we've held capital raising events for Exponential Events also in Bangkok. So we've got a global network.
Okay, are you planning to do any events in this part of the world anytime soon?
Oh, absolutely. As soon as we can get back there, absolutely. Yeah, we have event partners that we've held events for in Singapore and also London who've contracted us to hold events. But although we're an events company as such, we're more on the side of the capital raising, introductions and such like networking. Yeah, we used to fill the brand exchange in the City of London, which is 2 minutes from the Bank of England, twice a month, with probably breaking their fire regulations with over 100 people in an evening. We took over the club, which we will continue to do as soon as we get back to some form of normality. Same in Singapore, same in Hong Kong, same in KL, same in Bangkok. And as I say, my business partner from is based in Dubai. He's been there 19 years. Yeah. So
Emma, do you want to
purely
explain
global.
what you're doing?
Sorry, say again.
Emma's on the chat. I'm just seeing with she's got a very interesting brand, which links with one of my startup companies I work with actually.
Oh, hi. Is my video on? Is it working?
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah.
Perfect.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. It's been a really useful presentation so far. So thanks for that. So yeah, we're an Eco Kids brand. We're called Pure Earth Collection. And we did a raise end of 2019, beginning of 2020, when we were actually a different name. We were called Little Earth Baby back then. So we actually did a crowdfunding raise on Crowdcube. And it was a successful, oversubscribed raise.
How much did you raise?
And we raised about 120,000. And now we're looking to do a bigger raise next year, but we just need a bit of bridging capital to get to next year's raise, because obviously the challenges of the last 18 months have affected our kind of cash flow. But everything's in place. We've done our pitch deck and everything. But I guess my question is, should I just go to existing investors for that bridging round or reach out to new investors? And if reaching out to new investors, how do I find those investors in my industry, the angel investors? That was my biggest challenge last time. A lot of angel investors are interested in fintech, I found. And so if you're not in fintech, you're not interesting. So how do you find the ones that are interested in retail?
Yeah. Do you want to go, Dan? My simple comment would be, it's always easiest to go back to the people who are already your clients or investors. But Dan, please expand.
You're in a very fashionable area, and actually being in a fashionable area is one of the key challenges. So play to that whilst you can actually at the moment. If you're finding it, probably you don't appreciate, sorry, this is not to patronize you or anyone else on the call, but actually as you grow your company and you take more employees on and you're doing sales and revenue, actually one of your bigger challenges is managing your investors. So you want to keep, and you start to appreciate how you want to keep that kind of cap table as small as possible with as few as individuals as possible. So therefore, if they're good investors, they're not giving you too much hassle, they're providing you good feedback, they're supportive of what you do, then going to your existing investors and maybe offering a bit of a discount on your is maybe worth doing than going out to fresh investors.
Yeah,
at the end.
probably something. Sorry to interrupt, Dan. Probably something like Emma. I don't know when you came on the call, but like what Anthony was talking about earlier with their agile funding options.
Yeah.
Would that
Yeah.
work
So-
there? I think.
Yeah, that would be interesting. I have actually been speaking to SeedLegals about this bridging raise already. And I spoke to them about the agile funding, and they suggested actually in this instance, they think it's better just to do a bridging raise. But I guess it's very similar to the agile funding. I would just be giving a discount on next year's valuation, but they would just have clarity around what the valuation would be.
Yeah, so if you oversubscribe, you know, as long as you it's not a big deal here.
I think the more and more I look at, and I've known Anthony for a number of years now, and the concept of agile funding, and again, a question came up earlier, you know, how do you value the company on an agile funding, or what are you offering the shareholders or potential shareholders when they convert? It's like anything. It's, well, if I'm investing X and getting a 10-20% discount on the value of the company at the time, it doesn't matter what the value of the company is at that time. I'm making money.
Yeah.
There are some reasons why, and this is just talking to the broader audience here, why you might not do an agile fund round. And one of them is the paperwork. You might not have a, you know, as there's no kind of lead investor kind of structure, it's a little bit more complicated. You're dealing with complicated, little bit more trickier investment vehicles at the end of the day. You know, ASA, safe notes, convertible loans, all these kind of things. They're a little bit, you know, they've only become fashionable in the UK as particularly the past year or so during the pandemic. You've had the future fund underwriting, for instance, a lot of investment. So about 50 to 60% of all investment in the past year or two has been using some sort of convertible note. It means you can address the issue of what's your valuation, you know, at a later stage. At the moment, the world is rather haywire. And actually, the reason they're being popular in America is Americans say, hey guys, look, who knows what your investment as a pre-seed startup's going to be in, you know, 3-4 years time. And it's actually one of the things that the world's now realizing. You know, they've been thinking about this for ages, that the world's a complicated place. It's not just pandemics. There's all sorts that can happen. Recessions can happen. Our particular sector might have a scare for, you know, whatever it may be. It might be agriculture, for instance. There might be, you know, poisoning in the supply chain, all sorts of things. So this world of startups is one of lemmings, where they're waiting for the first one to jump as well. And if you've got to start dealing with documentation and everything else, no one wants to be that first one, even though anyone can come in at any one stage. So sometimes, you know, pulling everyone together, it's sometimes a lot easier to go for a kind of traditional cash for equity kind of situation. So, so it's yeah. But if you're with SeedLegal, you're going to do SeedLegals again for this round?
Yes, I think so. Yeah, they were very good last time.
Yeah, they are. It might not necessarily, depending on your experience, might not necessarily be your cheapest. I mean, they're not expensive, but some people, I mean, some people that have had some feedback, well, maybe they're a little more, you know, I could do the whole thing myself and it would be, you know, cheaper. Yes, but reality is, just think how much, you know, they're saving you time and everything else. And when you come down to it, actually, it's a pretty good deal. They're super supportive. There's I don't know, there's 150 of them now, I think, of them. They're on the end of a phone. They're really kind of very good. Actually, you know, they're providing a great service there. We should use them. And that's why Neil's got them as a sponsor. So, yeah.
Okay.
How much are you doing as a tranche round?
We're hoping for around 80,000.
And what's your value? What price is you at? What 80,000? What valuation?
So valuation 2.1.
Okay, so
Emma, please just drop me an email. Might have a few
likewise,
people interested. Yeah, I'll put it in here again.
Sorry. Okay, now, okay.
I don't know if we're connected on LinkedIn, but it's easier, as I say, just to
I'll send you my details, Emma. So,
Great.
so what's your question here? You're struggling to find the investors. You're in a sector where, I mean, I'm working with a similar sector. Have you spoken to? There's a few people I would introduce you to who are in this. I was going to say the sustainable clean tech space at the moment. Depending on what you're doing, also you might be suitable for one of the impact venture funds as well. So I don't exactly. What do you do again?
So we redesign conventional baby and kids products that are usually made out of plastic and, you know, not sustainable and not healthy materials, and we make them out of natural and non-toxic materials. So everything's biodegradable.
What's the raw ingredients you use?
So it depends what products. We've got a lot of products now. So we use a lot of organic cotton, bamboo. We use a lot of natural rubber. So we just try and swap out kind of plastic. So polyester swap for bamboo or organic cotton. Plastics we swap out for, you know, natural rubber or maybe silicone.
Are you doing anything that's unique?
Yes, we do. The way we make our products is very unique. So, for example, our baby sleeping bags, the way they are made, they are uniquely sort of they've got the biggest temperature range on the market, so you don't have to change for the different seasons. So just by taking out the polyester gives it a much and putting much more unique materials in there gives it a much bigger temperature range.
Where are you, Emma? Where are you based? It's only I've got access to the Lord Mayor's investment fund, or the Mayor of London's investment fund.
So based in the UK, I'm actually at the moment in Hampshire, so
right.
45 minutes from London.
Okay. Say, drop me an email. I might be able to do something or help you.
The thing you need to be careful or ready for is there isn't a day goes by where I don't get an investment deck for someone who's I mean, actually not particularly last year. We're making this out of this now. Coconut chocolate, you know, was instead of rubber, we're now using this, you know, bananas or whatever it may be. So and there was a lot of novelty with things. You know, it's either replacing polyester was a good one, or was other one. There was one we had. I think Neil and I, when we gave the last talk, we had one from doing shoes, for instance. Actually,
yeah, that's good. Yeah, we did. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, for instance. Sometimes we get startups who, instead of using cardboard, we all heard what happened with Amazon, for instance, last night. We're now, going to be using something that's recyclable. For instance, Nestle have just, for instance, announced they're going to be trialing something as well. So you just need to be a little bit cautious that there's a fatigue within some investment community. So I think it just has to be more than, and also you need to make sure, so this is sustainable, it's scalable, and make sure what you're doing is not passing the problem on, you will know this and appreciate it, down the whole value chain, because the amount of times we've seen, let's say banana skins and they're being shipped all the way from somewhere in the Caribbean, and where actually the carbon footprint is so high, that it would have been easy to use polyester coming from Hampshire. So
yeah, sure.
But please send me your picture, and I would happily take a conversation separately to see if we can send it to Neil and I, and we'll have a chat.
Yeah, definitely. And anybody, as I say, out there, Emma, thanks very much for that. And I look forward to hearing from you. Anybody whose pitch deck I haven't got or anything else, please send them over. We can help. We will look at them, unlike probably 90% of VCs and such like, who, without being too negative here, I know certain companies, if the predominant company's blue, they'll look at it. If it's got yellow in it, they'll throw it in the bin. And unfortunately, that's probably not a great example, but that's what people do. So with us, what we're trying to do, and we have been doing for the last 4 or 5 years coming up now, is put people in touch through events, through workshops like this. We also run a practice your pitch event, again with Dan, myself and Anthony, who will give feedback to the difference between a pitch deck, which you send to people, and actually pitching to people, whether that's mainly at the moment virtual, but obviously going forward a physical. So we're here to help. Have a look at our website, which is www.exponentialevents.com. Get in contact, and we're here to help. So anything we can do.
It was interesting that when Anthony says he's not sure about the advisors on pitch decks, because Sequoia make a big thing of liking seeing advisors.
Yeah, I mean, I had a great friend of mine in Dubai who was actually a multi-millionaire who was raising a large amount of money for something, and he sent me a pitch deck, and I looked at and it was 40 pages long. Yeah, and I won't mention his name, obviously. And I looked at the first 5 pages of it, and I had absolutely no idea whatsoever they were doing. Now, the only reason I actually looked at it and helped him and gave him advice on it, and that's what Dan will do as well as part of a sort of capital raise process, is advise. And I said to this guy, call him Mike, doesn't matter. I've read the first 5 pages of this 35, 40 page pitch deck, Mike, and I've got no idea what you're doing. And he went, but you know what I'm doing? I said, yeah, I know what you're doing. But nobody else is going to go into 5, 6 pages before you tell them what's going on. So again, with capital raising and everything else, and Dan can help you probably much more than I can here. First impressions, it's like a meeting, it's like anything else. If you're sending something to somebody, whoever it might be, it has to actually go, oh, that's interesting. And in this, and I'll just tell you this thing with this particular person, and he was doing something with retired veterans and helping veterans. And the head of NatWest Bank had made a quote saying, this is a game changer for veterans and business in this field. Right? That's a direct quote from the head of NatWest Bank. I said to him, Mike, let's say his name was, put that as a headliner. Right? You can't get any better than that. And it was hidden in a quote down, one of the 35, 40 pages it was. So founders aren't salespeople necessarily, and raising capital is all about sales. It's presenting yourself right. It's getting in front of as many people as possible to get that investment. So please get in touch with Dan on that, because that's what he does.
Founders aren't salespeople. If there's one thing you learn soon enough, is to become a salesperson once you're a founder.
Yeah.
Can I tell you a bit about Mirage Sports City?
Yeah.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Tell us more.
So it's it's going to be a facility for all sports, for out of season practice, for elite professionals, and a range of academies, again for all sports, based in Spain, just near Malaga, Marbella. So it will encompass football pitches, cricket pitches, rugby pitches, tennis pitches, a quality golf course encompassing 27 holes, so 18 plus 9 hole golf course, all accompanied around a leisure facility for those same elite professionals to network, meet, and do sports business. So it's going to be a best-in-class facility for all kinds of sports, for all kind of age groups and level of attainment, with allied arena for esports, and potentially a stadium for putting on tournaments across those sports. The advantage with Spain, it's a out of season, it's still very temperate, and this facility will compete with the likes of Dubai Sports City. So we've had a lot of traction, and we're just starting now to raise some funding for it. We've got 3.5 million square meters of land agreed, but not under option at the moment, for putting this facility down just outside Fuengirola in Spain. But yeah, it's an early stage funding, and we're struggling really to get the valuation right to make it attractive to investors, because it's such a large project and needs a lot of money really to get it off the ground. So we still need money to put in the legal agreements, the land options, put the structures together. But it has, a natural market in investors, with particularly with sports stars, sports professionals, really wanting to further their career and have somewhere to go with their families once they've retired from their sports at 35, 40 years old, and come to a really attractive leisure.
Martin, how much are you looking at raising?
Initially up to 10 million.
Right.
Part of that will be for to secure the land options.
Okay. And have you got some stars on board, or?
We've spoken to a lot. We haven't signed anybody up yet, but yeah, a lot of it's about, I think, getting in the right partners in the commercial space. We've got people who, for example, Sergio Garcia has agreed to design the golf course.
Right.
In Spain. There's people like Juan Mata who are looking at the soccer offer, and Sir Andrew Strauss for the cricket side of it. It's getting these names to sign up, and how we present that in the pitch to bring people on board. Dr. Michael Loosemore from UCL has offered to run the sports clinic, have a center of excellence for that.
Right, I've got a contact in the States who might be interested in this. So yeah, please drop me a line. And when I say contact in the States, if you imagine the biggest baseball side in America, he used to be the owner.
Fantastic, because we want to offer a facility for American sports to
drop me a line. There's something I can do also with Dubai as well, because there's money flying out there at the moment.
Well, we've got Vijay Sanjana, who used to run Dubai Sports City, talking to us about coming on board.
Okay.
Well, he's plugged into the sports world enough.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, please. Yeah, drop us a line. I might be able to do something. It sounds like you're going to need a lot more than 10 million, but
no, the whole thing is probably €1 billion.
Yeah.
By the time it's fully.
Yeah.
But we need to phase it. And
this isn't an Angels thing. This is contacts around the world, corporate, government.
You might be able to help with your PE hat on here, Neil.
Yeah, I can certainly get you through a business partner in Dubai into some sort of sovereign wealth contacts and such like.
That'd be great.
Yeah. Be great. Obviously with sponsorship elements and bits and pieces, but yeah, that's.
I mean, we do need to actually put the structure together. We've kind of need the seed funding to do that. Or even
look, I appreciate that, but you're not going to get like a company raising 200 or 150 grand on SCIS pop with investors popping in $5 It's not going to do you any favors.
True enough.
Yeah.
Well, the SCIS is, but I mean,
it's not going to. It might get you a brochure. It's not going to.
Well, I mean, one of the first things we've got to do is a master plan for the site, really, and that's.
Drop me a line, Martin. I've got an idea actually.
Okay.
My details are in the chat, but if you
yes, I'll send that to you. Thank you very much.
Jackie, I'm judging the Tech for Good Awards, and you're one of the submitters, aren't you? I'm on the panel with Google and BBC and a few others. Maybe Jackie's having her lunch.
A rest.
See if we can raise her from the dead.
No.
All right. Emma, tell us more if you're still there. No, we've spoken to Emma, haven't we? Anyone else?
Well, hi, Dan.
I've got a question.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just put it into the chat there. It's just regarding SEI's funding sources. Neil, thank you very much for your comments earlier, and I've checked out the website, and I'll be looking to submit for next week, assuming that there's still places available.
We have a couple. What we've done in the past is done 10, and it's just too much of a rush. So we like limited down to like 5 or 6. I think I've got 4. So yes, there is a couple of spaces.
Excellent. Expect another application coming your way.
Thank you.
I was going to ask you more broadly, if you don't mind, in terms of SEIS raising. So of course we'll pitch at the event. Of course we think we've got a great idea, as every startup does. We'd like to get it out there and get more investors aware about it. What other sources do you think there are that we should be tapping on in terms of trying to identify SEIS funds or investors or whatever it may be?
I can help you that separately. There's a number of CIS funds in the UK. Dan probably expand on that a little bit more in a second.
Yeah, I can go through them.
Yeah. But before you do that, what I suggest is do a 1-page teaser, knock it out to your LinkedIn's, your social media, your friends, LinkedIn's and such like of what you're doing. Yep, doesn't even need to say who you are. It's like
about 3,000 investors you want to be looking at, and then thinking about which ones are there you want.
It's getting those details out there, and then they're going to ask you. This is more angels now rather than VCs and funds as such, but and I don't know what you're rating at the moment, but I think you mentioned 150 SEIS.
Yeah, we're looking about 150 to 200
right. So don't waste your time with VCs. They're not coming in till $500,000 plus. And Dan might disagree with that. He might agree with it, but anyway.
We're not.
So it's hit your networks as much as you can, and your friends' networks, and your friends of friends' networks.
It depends what he's doing, Neil. I mean, bizarrely enough, Amadeus, for instance, have a seed fund, for instance. Bizarre as it crazy may be, but
Velocity, something that might be of interest.
But I mean, they're in a very particular focus, for instance. So I don't know what you're doing, Stuart. What area are you working in, Stuart?
Yeah, so I guess let's call it technology. Essentially what the proposition is if you imagine access cards like people have to their buildings, or like you have to universities, a university replacement card from a hard physical card through to a digital one on your phone. A number of benefits for it in terms of provisioning it, saving plastic, reducing churn and so on. That's essentially what it is. So taking exactly what that is and making it into an app and a card on your phone.
Well, you're in a busy space there, actually. So I'll intro you, if you wish, to one of the startups that I worked with when I was mentor for Startup Bootcamp. And they had an app on the phone, and they could detect where anyone was who was in the perimeter. So we sold it, for instance, they sold it to UCL, for instance, for Canary Wharf, for the university campus in wherever it was, 80th floor in Canary Wharf, for instance.
Yeah. Okay.
So you do have competitors in that space. So
there's some competitors. I mean, we're working directly with the security firms to help implement this at the moment. Their guidance is that it's not so busy in the education space, and there definitely is precedent. Don't get me wrong. I think more so.
Space, I would say, is one of the busiest space because they're really conscious about where they've got a duty of care.
Yeah. I mean, there's really not much precedent, particularly in the UK, in terms of institutions where the students are using their mobile phones to access the doors and so on. So there's a hell of a lot of land left to grab there, and we're working. I
just wonder also now in a COVID world where there's more being done remotely, whether that's the market size is shrunk down a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the time that students no longer go onto university campus, perhaps so, but there will come a time that it comes back to it. I think also that for, being able to issue out cards for when people need them, even if they're not coming in so frequently, this certainly lends itself well to that. Whereas at the moment, somebody needs to be physically on site to issue it, along with the students actually having to go in to receive it.
All right, send me the details, Stuart, and I'll see what I can do.
Okay, yeah, that'd be amazing, Dad. Thank you.
Any more for any more? See if I can put the name of that brand company.
Sorry there.
I'm still there.
Okay.
Just waiting
yes.
to see if there's any more in. We just asked, Stuart's just finished, just waiting to see if there's any more.
Okay. Stuart, yeah, just drop me a line and sorry, I haven't got my keep turning the video. Oh, here we go. Sorry.
We can hear you.
Hi, Dan. Hi, Neil.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. I'm Saran Muttaya. Thank you for all the information. It's been really helpful. I'm a specialist pediatric physiotherapist. I'm also founder of early stage digital health startup, Enrich My Care. What we are doing is we are developing a personal health and remote monitoring platform for children and young people with disabilities. It is really complex and challenging to manage their care. I have 20 years of experience doing it for the NHS and private sector. So our platform would help to improve the care from a clinician's point of view, and more importantly, also help manage the burden of the care from a parent and carer perspective. We have been engaging with the patients and practitioners to build the platform. We are at an MVP stage now, just about to get some test bed opportunities through the health and social care teams within Wales and in England. Just about to set our eyes on fundraising. We've had a grant from EU for 20K, as well as friends and family round of around 20 to 30K or so, which has brought us to this milestone. That's where we are.
It sounds interesting. So how much are you going to be looking to raise now?
Thinking anywhere between 250K and 300,000.
Okay.
And we would qualify for SEIS.
Okay, Dan, do you want to
You'll
take that up?
qualify for SCIS for part of it, only part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but you can always
first
top it.
150.
You can, yeah, but you can top the rest up with EIS. People think you can't mix it, but you can.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a good information. I think it's been really interesting hearing to what you've been saying about, you know, the grants as well as the investment side of things. And my thinking has been sort of setting this milestone, and then let's hit this milestone of having the MVP out with some users in it. We have had prototype being tested by the
When do you run out of cash, Sarah?
Say again, sorry.
When do you run out of cash? What's your cash burn at the moment?
Well, cash burn, again, we're managing, but the challenge now is it's just dragging on a bit because of the cash burn and the fact that we just want to hit this milestone. The compliance is a challenge from the NHS side of things, but we are doing it now. We are in the process of dissecting that. Within the next few months, we would have the compliance and MHRA registration as well. So hopefully that should put us in a good position to sort of attract some investors. Sorry? Do
you have a pitch deck you can send me?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I can do that.
So I would say about 60% of what Ideas Crucible does is in the medtech space. Fantastic. We didn't, I mean, it's just how it's turned out. So, but we do more, but it's an area, yeah, it's a great thing about being a small company. I work in the areas I'm interested in. Fantastic. So, and I can intro you to my, maybe one of my fellow doctors who does his assessment of the challenges you can have. So we've just got one of the startups I advised just into the NHS. We've just got 2 £500,000 contracts, and I'm taking them out and we've just got them approved in the States. We decided to not mess around with the UK any further. That's a little bit harsh. but we decided to focus a lot earlier than possible, getting it through approvals with in the US.
Fantastic.
I can help you with that. I've got some key contacts out there.
Thank you, Dan. Yeah, sure. We've been part of the NH's startup bootcamp as well here in East Midlands, as well as we have managed to partner with the NHS in Wales for a test bed opportunity, which is coming up in the next 2 to 3 months, once we get the compliance registration and stuff.
Are you plugged into the MedCity people?
No, not yet. No.
I was on the phone to them only this morning. Happy to chat to you. I can introduce you to their program lead on that. I mean, they're not for profit. They introduce you to people. They introduce you to people like me, actually, which is why I'm always up. But they're plugged into all the government grant schemes to be able to, and they're plugged into a lot of the NHS. They're there just to support you, and they've got their own investment platform as well.
Thank you, Dan. I shall share my pitch deck with you soon, and and I've also connected through LinkedIn as well. Please accept it.
Yeah, with pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you, Neil, for.
You're welcome. Thank you very
giving us the
much
opportunity.
indeed. As I say, please get in contact with me. I'll send out the link probably later on, because it takes about 2 hours to download to the video, and also the contact details. We're going to close up now because we run over, but anybody else want to comment finally? No. Okay, well, let's close. I wish you all a great afternoon or evening, wherever you might be. Thank you to everybody who attended. Thank you again to Anthony Rose from SeedLegals, Dan from Forresters, and Dan from Ideas Crucible. Very much appreciate your support. And we hold these once a month. So again, next month, if you want to come, it'll be slightly different. Dan, we'll be in touch in the next couple of days because I've got a few things I need to speak to you about. But again, thanks everybody. And as I say, have a great day.